What makes art important?
I think art's important because there's a variety of different reasons, right? We can click through some of these pretty quickly, but the recognition of beauty. We see beauty all the time in the natural world, but inner beauty is harder to capture. Art does that, right? Art does that through music or visual art, gives us the ability to kind of see what the human experience is. So it brings art from the inside out, right? When it does that, it allows us to connect with one another. It allows us to see the experience of what someone else is going through, whether that's large scale macro, like a whole culture, or micro from an individual. But either way, that amount of expression of that inner part of art, that is one of those important and great things about it.
Beautiful. Because people don't think about that inner part. They think of the expression physically. So they're going to think of the stained glass around us, or sculptures, paintings, drawings, stuff like that.
Right.
Or if they think of music, they may think of the sound or the performance, not necessarily the feeling of music.
I mean, we get feelings from art, right? We get feelings when we're looking at something or we're listening to something. Where does that come from? How does that happen? It's not just a receptive type of thing. Obviously, someone is giving that out into the universe, or whatever you want to call it. Like they are expressing that, hoping that someone will pick up on it. We're always receiving that. You get into a mood, you want to hear a certain type of music, you want to surround yourself with beautiful things, see beautiful things that'll help take you out of your mundane everyday experience. Art does that,
Are you familiar with Lloyd Wright?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Right? Beautiful architect.
Right.
You probably know the largest collection of his work is not far from here. It's in Lakeland.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Florida Southern.
Yes.
Correct.
With the highest concentration of the number of his buildings in one place.
In one place, exactly.
That's right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think there's been studies, people that moved into his homes that he designed when he was alive and building them.
Mm-hmm.
People that moved in and stayed lived longer.
Really?
Compared to people of the same, there's a lot of stats of the same socioeconomic, so on and so forth.
Interesting.
It's not like they were just wealthy because they could afford this cool house.
Yeah.
So they had better healthcare.
Yeah.
They literally, between psychology, sociology, they may be hosting more, they may be around people more, and they're just enjoying art more frequently. And they actually extended their life.
I like that.
Beyond that. It's unbelievable. Architectural Digest is one of my favorite YouTube channels.
Okay.
I binge watch it, so highly recommend checking them out.
All right.
They definitely have a Frank Lloyd Wright infatuation.
Okay.
So they make a lot of videos. And there's a gentleman still in his 90s. I would love to interview him.
Yeah.
He's in New York.
Okay.
And he's got one of the more famous houses. Because a lot of the houses were one-offs.
Yes.
It's not like he just made a design that was cool.
Right. The only version of that's going to be a Usonian house. And they do have a version of that, right there on campus in Lakeland. But you're right. The vast majority were very custom, bespoke, as it were. Very cool. Unique pieces. Yeah.
So pretty neat.
Oh, very cool.
Right.
I've actually had the opportunity to stay the night in a Frank Lloyd Wright house. I'll never forget it. It's in Hyde Park, outside of Chicago. The reason why I won't forget it is because it is my name upside down and backwards. So I am Thomas M. Frank, and this is the Frank W. Thomas house. I was able to stay there when a group of us from college went to go visit Chicago and see the Art Institute and a variety of other things. It was a alum of our college that owned the house, still owns the house. And we got to stay in the basement with all his kids' toys and stuff in a Frank Lloyd Wright house. It was very memorable.
I bet they're going to live longer.
They're still alive.
Right.
So they must be doing something
now,
right. Yeah.
Right now, correlation.
That's right. Yeah.
How has art impacted your life?
So art has impacted my life, again, kind of in a variety of ways. Part of that is that inner expression. It's pretty neat to be able to have ideas and then try to make them manifested, right, into a physical object. In my case, that's going to be in ceramics. So I can do that through vessels that we're really familiar with, tableware and things like that. But I can also do it through sculpture, which is so freeform. It can be anything. Clay is really different from wood. We don't have to follow the grain. Now, there's certain rules that clay has, but not as strict as maybe, woodworking or something like that. So that part's really enjoyable about the material. When it comes to other things that I wouldn't have expected in art making, it really has to do with community. Ceramics itself kind of comes with a built-in community. Part of the reason for that is because the equipment's kind of expensive. And so people don't necessarily want to invest in all that equipment on their own. They do, but more often than not, for the rest of us, you'll find a community studio environment where people are working together and exchanging ideas. Ceramics is so vast in the types of firings, the temperature you can fire to, the types of clay, the types of forms you can make, that the pedagogical part of it naturally lends towards a mutual exchange of ideas and information. Sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's aesthetic, but when you're wanting to learn new steps, you can try to figure it out on your own, and that's okay. Or you can shortcut that by having conversations with people within the community who have been there, done that, and they're very happy to share that information because someone shared it with them. So I would say that expression, that personal expression of ideas, and then combining that with community, those are the things that make art really special for me.
Did you always want to be an artist?
It's a complicated answer in that probably. When I was the kid who was doodling all the time. I remember discovering the technology that was the flip book when I was in 4th or 5th grade, how you could just flip through those pages and you could make this animated thing happen. And I think I got in trouble a lot for making those instead of paying attention, in civics class, English, math, whatever. Later on, when I was in like junior high and high school, I still liked exploring art, but I was a little bit stymied simply by the classroom environment that I was in. I was joking with someone the other day that, if you're looking at a high school art department, kind of depending on the department, it's full of a lot of misfit folks. And there's a reason that like the band director is not going to put up with someone who's misbehaving. He's going to kick him out, right? Home ec, they're not going to go to home ec because they might set something on fire, with the oven or the stove. They'll end up in the art room. And in the art room, you have a mismatch of, kids who really love geeking around with art, which was me, and then people who had no other place to go. And they can sometimes kind of be disruptive. When I saw my art teachers engaging in that, I was like, I don't know if that's really something for me. And that's more arts education than being an artist. But I do feel like when I kind of go through the thoughts and feelings that I had in middle school, high school, college, and by the time I was in college, I was hooked, on being an artist. I think that I knew I was going to do it, but my understanding of art evolved over time to realize that it wasn't just pretty pictures, but it was more of that expression of our perception of the world. And it didn't scare me off. I leaned into it, So we could say the quick answer to your question is like, yeah, I guess I always wanted to be an artist. But what changed over time was why, and what that was going to look like and what that was really going to mean to me on a deeper level.
With that why and that evolution, did your favorite art change from one type to another?
Great question. I wouldn't say that it changed. It just expanded, right? So I was able to kind of focus on some things that I really liked, but now all of a sudden there was more and there was more and there was more, some of the things that opened up over time, not to go through the perfect timeline, but it was like drawing and painting. That's what I got introduced to, right? But then I really liked wood carving when I was in the Boy Scouts. And so whittling and carving and making a 3-dimensional thing, that was really cool. When I was in college, it became about clay and getting involved with that, somehow architecture. So when you mentioned Frank Lloyd Wright, like I'm a big fan because there's something about the way he organizes his spaces that I love. And I'm kind of a nut, been able to visit a few different, spaces that he's created in different parts of our country. Really, really amazing, impressive. But somehow mid-century modern came in, and that had a lot to do with the community of people that I was around. And so that aesthetic, started to kind of inform some of my art interests. Being here at the Arts Council, where so much of our history is music and visual art, I've developed more of an appreciation of that. I'm not a musician. I don't even play CDs anymore. I play nothing, but the love for how our musicians locally, compose, how they perform, whether it's an individual or singer-songwriter, or it's going to be a group of people like our chorale, which is made of 50 plus voices. That appreciation, again, it's expanded. So it hasn't changed focus. I've just been able to receive so much more as time's gone by.
I never considered playing a CD an instrument. So I didn't think I played many instruments, but
here you go.
Growing up, I played the VHS tape.
Excellent.
The cassette tape.
Rock and roll, man.
The CD and the DVD.
And now the iPod. Maybe not even that. I don't know.
Maybe.
The phone. Now you play the phone.
Yeah.
I play the Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very neat. We touched on a lot. So it may have been my first conversation with you, but I also interviewed my friend Jay Silverstein. He's an artist I may have told you about.
Yeah.
He studied in Italy, and you may have seen his interview. And he described that working with marble was very humbling.
Yes.
Very, very long process.
Oh, yes.
But learning from Michelangelo in his quarry, it's a subtractive art.
Right.
So when you make a mistake, it could be too far to fix it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can go in a different direction. But once you remove too much,
right,
you can't put it back.
Nope.
Pottery, ceramics, and working with clay is different.
Yeah.
Right? It's additive. You can add to it, correct?
You can add to it. It is subtractive,
right,
and it's infinitely reclaimable. So you can, if you take stone and you goof up, or you find a vein that cleaves in a way that you don't want it to, it's true. You're either have to majorly adjust what you plan to do, or you're going to abandon that piece of stone and maybe return to it later. But it'll be a totally different composition. Ceramics, that same thing can happen, but then you take that clay, you dump it into a bucket, you rehydrate, you reclaim it, and now you get to make a whole new thing. We believe more strongly in the conservation of mass, the law of the conservation of mass, because that material can be used again and again and again. Woodworking, you have to say measure twice, cut once. Well, in clay, maybe you measure, cut as many times as you want, because you know that the material can be reused again. And it makes it a little bit different, I think, than some of those other, and more forgiving, maybe.
Tell me more about ceramics and pottery. Describe, are they the same thing? Are they technically different? Explain them.
I get this question a lot, actually. Because you say ceramics, and it's like, oh, my grandmother did that. And it's like, okay, all right, ceramics would be the overall umbrella, right? A description of this clay material that's been fired, and at the end of the whole process, the finished product is ceramics, fits within ceramics. Now, we break that down into clay being used as a sculpture material that is then a mold is taken from that, and you might pour metal into that mold. So clay is the conduit, but it's not the finished product. Pottery is usually a tableware catch-all. Functional items, non-functional items, all that would fit into pottery. Sculpture is this vast thing where you can hang sculpture on the wall, you can put it on a pedestal, you can put it on the floor. I mean, it just occupies that 3D space. But typically, sculpture is non-functional, although that's not an absolute. You can have functional sculpture that's, it still exists within ceramics. So ceramics is that whole big catch-all. And so you can have a paint your own pottery studio. You can make things from scratch. You can sculpt things, and we would consider kind of all of that within ceramics itself.
Very neat.
Yeah.
I did some research.
Uh-oh.
I didn't write some of it down. Describe what clay is. I was reading about, the individual minerals and elements and stuff, which can get confusing. But describe, It's not just dirt, right? Explain what it is.
It's not. So clay, I used to know the molecular flora. It's like, Al2, SiO3, something like that. It is a combination of alumina and silica. Those are our two base things. And then we add in water. So H2O becomes a part of that equation. Alumina is a thing that doesn't want to melt until you get it to high temperatures. Silica, it likes to melt. That is the glass component of it. Water helps you shape the stuff. It is basically a material that is different from dirt, or dirt has organic material and sand. It has a silica content in it, but this is more of a refined version of it. When you think of dirt, and I can't tell you that I've actually looked at the molecular structure of dirt, but you just think of it as like clumps of material, whatever. Clay is made out of platelets, specifically platelets. So whatever it is that little molecular formula does, it creates these little platelets of clay. They're not uniform balls. It is a platelet, and so those things get into alignment. They get out of alignment, and that feeling, those platelets create the feeling of clay. To where is that like kind of slick type of material. That's because you've got particles that are really small size. You can have things like grog, it's ceramic material that's already been fired and pulverized, but it's a larger mesh size, and that's grittier. You can kind of feel that grit. And clay is that this really beautiful mismatch, depending on the type of clay you're looking at. It can be the very fine particles, or it could be that gritty type of stuff. It's all clay, but you pick what you want depending on the thing that you want to make from it.
Pretty cool.
It's really cool.
You can make a lot out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Break down very briefly kind of some history of ceramics.
So we think that the history of ceramics started after basketry. So basketry predates us. I say us. Yes, us. Basketry, we needed to, as hunter-gatherers, we needed to be able to get things and take them with us if we were wandering around. But we had a hard time with seeds, especially small seeds. We wanted to eat seeds. We like seeds. They're tasty. They're great. You can smash them, turn them into grain, right? Now all of a sudden you're take grain, smash it. Now all of a sudden you're making bread. That's awesome. But the technological evolution of how to get all these small little seeds from one place to another, they would take clay from a riverbed. They would find it in a lake or a riverbed. They would line their basket with it. And then that could allow them to carry around more of these smaller things. Well, one of those must have fallen into a fire at some point. And the basket burned away, but that clay material hardened. It, maybe it vitrified, but it was enough for them to be like, what do we do with this now? Whoa, we can carry water, right? This hard material allows us to, beyond an animal's skin or something like that, which we might have carried around water or wine. Now we've got this clay material that's hardened, and we can store more things in it without it bursting a wine skin or an animal skin. It just sits there. So that's what we think, from an anthropological study, that we had these baskets that then became hardened, and that's how we moved into clay being a more archival material to use for storage, for food and moving around.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Very neat.
I mean, who knew? An accident.
Yeah.
Boom. Now you've got this whole new engagement of a material on Earth.
A lot of things are accidents.
Yeah.
Because mathematically, to try every variable to get to that point, we'd still be working on some things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some different medications.
Yeah.
The odds of you trying to find out every plant combination.
Yeah.
The odds that we found this one.
Sure.
Pretty remarkable.
Champagne was by accident. The microwave was by accident. I mean, there's a lot of things that, thank goodness people were paying attention to the accidents happening.
Yeah.
But they created these incredible leaps forward.
And sometimes to people's detriment, where microwaves are not fun.
No,
when they're escaping the box.
Yeah, it's better to keep them in the box. Yeah, that's true.
Right? Definitely. Yeah. We talked a little bit about different types of pottery. What I was learning was they're fired.
Yes.
Is it considered being baked, or those are two different things? What's the difference?
I guess, we say fired as a way of differentiating between that and baked, because your oven tops out about 500 degrees, right, at home. And so when you're baking things, it's never really going to get that hot. Now, where baking and firing are kind of related, we do temperature over time. And we know this from baking cookies. You don't just heat your oven to 325 and put your cookies in and then take them out. It takes time, right? Well, ceramics is the same way. So we call it heat work, where you're heating the clay material to a certain temperature over a certain amount of time. Now, the interesting thing about clay, and I don't know if this would be the same thing for cookies, it might be, you can go faster, but you have to go hotter to do the same type of heat work. Or you could go to a lower temperature, but you have to do it over a longer timeline in order to get there. Baking kind of does the same thing, but now all of a sudden your turkey is very dry. right? Or it's like maybe still a little gooey in the middle, which who wants a gooey turkey? Ceramics, it doesn't matter if you go hot and fast or low and slow, you're going to get there.
Yeah, because you don't eat the middle.
Yes,
Right.
because you don't eat the middle.
Yeah, right. So I guess, is there math to calculate if you have this much clay mass? You know, it's going to take kind of like weighing meat.
Yeah.
4 pounds of pork is going to take this long.
Right.
Can you calculate it like that?
We don't necessarily calculate it based on thickness, but we do use pyrometric cones. And so some brainiac along the way, chemist, realized that if you guess the temperature and you guess the time, you might be right. None of us is usually smart enough to do the math right on the fly. And this is long before you could get ChatGPT to make an app for you to do it. So they developed pyrometric cones. And so of the vast number of temperatures that you can fire clay to, they make these little cones, and it's made out of ceramic material, varying bits of this and that, depending on which end of the spectrum you're going to. And that cone just sits like, at whatever little degree that it's supposed to. And over time, it bends just like that. You've hit your target temperature. So that is how we know. We use that a lot in electric kilns, gas kiln, atmospheric kilns, to be able to know that our glazes are getting to the right temperature. Because if you're getting close to the final temperature for a glaze, it might look glossy, and then you cool down the kiln, and then you look at it and you're like, uh-oh, didn't quite get hot enough. So that cone lets you know you've nailed it, and you can work on shutting that thing down and waiting it for it to cool and pull it out of the kiln.
Yeah. What were those cones called?
Pyrometric cones.
Gotcha.
The one company in the United States that we trust to make those is the Orton Company. And they have a whole chart. An interesting thing about cones, when you measure it, it's not just temperature. They've created their own system to where it's cone 5 or cone 06 or cone 022. Think of the O as a negative sign. So it becomes a negative integer. So the bigger that number is with an O, the cooler the temperature. And then the larger that number is without the O, the hotter it is. So cone 10 and cone 018 are like two extremes. You use this to fire stuff in industry, really nice and hot. You use that lower temperature for China paint or for lusters or things like that are more of a surface treatment on top of something that's already been fired to that hotter temperature. So yeah, it's a cone system, and it makes us very nerdy. It sets us apart from everybody else who's just talking about centigrade and Fahrenheit. We talk in cones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is. It's kind of cool.
I didn't know much about them. So I know we just described that clay is reusable. I get that. But once the cone kind of flops out, do you flop the other way and reheat it up, or you one and done?
It's so once you do fire a material, it's pretty well done.
Done's all right.
Now you can pulverize it, turn it into grog. You can smash those pieces and turn it into a mosaic. So people find a way to continue to use it. But for the most part, clay stays reclaimable when it's still greenware. Once you start firing in the kiln, it does change it quite a bit to where now you're looking at a different way to use it.
Gotcha. So it's more upcycling. Right.
Yeah. At that point, I think
not recycling, but upcycling.
Yeah, more upcycling. Yeah.
Cool. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
So you described the oven in your house, probably not hot enough.
Definitely not hot enough. Yeah.
Describe what is a kiln and how hot do they get?
All right. So the kilns that we use, they're made out of refractory bricks, which is just a really fun way to say stuff that withstands high temperatures. Those can be made out of soft bricks, which reflect a lot of heat, but they're not as strong and rigid. They can be made out of hard bricks, which is a much more dense material. Take your average red brick, right? You pick that up, and you feel the weight of it. But if we're talking about a hard refractory brick, I swear it feels like it's twice as heavy because it's just that much more dense. So we build our kilns out of those, different materials, and you can make them all kinds of sizes. You can make them all kinds of shapes. It really kind of depends on what you want to do. But what happens is you're heating that kiln typically to between 1,800 and 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. And it changes that material. So part of the reason why you can't just reclaim clay, or you have to upcycle it after you fired it, is you are changing it from this dirt-like substance, right, as far as that greenware clay, and you're actually causing a chemical and physical change that creates a crystalline structure within the piece itself. And now it's no longer a dirt-like thing, it is a glass-like thing. And that firing process is what helps to make that happen. You remember Sweet Home Alabama? Remember this movie? No?
I thought you were going to say the song.
Oh, all right.
Song,
so the movie, the incredibly fabulous Oscar-nominated, no, it wasn't on, no, movie, Reese Witherspoon and the other dude. The beginning of the movie, this is a tangent. Beginning of the movie, they're when they're kids, there's this lightning strike, and it creates like a lightning shape under the sand, right? And you find out, spoiler alert, everybody, that you find out later that the dude has made an entire industry out of working with glass, working with silica. The size of those tree-like, spires is a very romantic notion. They never really get that big. Here in Lake Wales, actually in the outskirts of town, there's a sand company. What they do is they harvest the sand underneath the ground, and they distribute it into different sizes, and they use it kind of for what I do as far as silica sand. They find the lightning strike things all the time, but they're like this big, like they're itty bitty. Come to find out, sand is a very dense material. It's not that easy to just conduct electricity through it. If they had a conductor, it would maybe be better. I bring all that up to say that, you're changing that sand and you're fusing it together and creating that crystal structure that really makes it more like glass. And once you've experienced that chemical change, there's no going back.
Very cool.
So the kiln helps us do that. It heats it to those temperatures.
Yeah.
That allows us to make that change.
Once it gets more glass-like on the outside, talk about some of the coatings that you alluded to.
So within our typical process, we'll make something out of greenware, and then we will bisque fire it. If you're in the UK, you would biscuit fire it. Somehow we've dropped the T here, but after bisque firing is like a half-baked brownie, right? So it's not quite, hard enough to be done and vitrified, and yet it's still porous enough that you can apply glaze to it. So we will bisque fire that. We will apply glaze to it, and then we'll put it back into the kiln. And that's usually that second firing that means you're done. Now, you can do a post-glaze firing, which is that luster or China paint that I talked about, that some people will do, but most of us don't. We usually stop with the glaze firing, and then it's done. And if you've done it right, if you've fired that clay and that glaze to the right temperature, and they fit together really well, like they're supposed to chemically, then you've got a waterproof item that can hold your coffee without ever sweating out onto the counter, without absorbing any funk, from your coffee. And an industry is the ones who do this really well from a chemical standpoint to make that glaze clay match, firing it to the right temperature. And they've got nerds who make sure that that's perfect every time so that their pieces are FDA approved, or whoever looks at it and says, yes, this is certified healthy for the public. It's those chemists that help to make sure that works right.
Like coffee cups, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And then that way you could put them in the microwave and it's not dissipating all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Because you probably understand how a microwave works, where like what microwaves do is they heat the water inside of a thing. If you've got a pottery cup that is a little bit absorbent, then what happens is the particles, the water particles inside of that clay material get really excited, and then they cause the piece to crack, maybe not explode, but definitely to crack. So when you've got a commercially made mug, and a lot of the mugs that I would make and my cohorts would make too, those can still be microwave safe to where they are no longer porous, and therefore the water particles don't seep in and get the piece excited and cause it to break. Yeah.
Very cool. So you noted cracking just now.
Yeah.
Right? My parents had these very, very old bowls from Italy.
Okay.
And over time, they're approaching 100 years old. We still use them, which is awesome.
Cool.
We slowly have less and less.
Yeah.
Right? I think we may have one.
Yeah.
And it's cherished. Why is it that you don't feel any cracks, but underneath that beautiful glass-like finish, you kind of see...
Yeah.
Is that what's happening? They're just underneath the outside layer?
Yeah. So in the industry, we might call that crazing, and there's varying versions of crazing. Crazing is a slight mismatch between... are you ready to go down a rabbit hole here? All right. So crazing has to do with the coefficient of expansion. When things are fired, they swell and then they shrink. And depending on the material and the ratio of the different materials that would make up a clay or make up a glaze, they expand and they shrink at different rates and at different times. And sometimes they expand a lot and then they shrink back a lot. Sometimes they expand a lot and they just don't shrink back. Sometimes they don't expand a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. The proper match is that both that clay and that glaze, they're expanding to the same amount and then they're contracting back to the same amount. And industry, as those nerds, they figured that out, right? For the rest of us, or if you're looking at very early factory processes, which could be, the pottery that you're talking about, that match might be a little off. And so what's happened is you've got micro fractures, very small fractures within the surface of that glaze, because it doesn't quite fit the clay right. It could be that it didn't expand enough or expanded too much or didn't shrink enough, whatever. And that causes these tiny little hairline things. We've got them at my house too, so even like older American factory made stuff, you might still see these itty bitty fractures, especially at the bottom where like maybe coffee has settled or something like that. Or you can also think of the glaze has run just a little bit in the firing process and it's pooled just a little more at the bottom than it has at the sides. And that slight bit of pooling makes a difference as far as that glaze fit. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong, right? It's kind of a miracle that we get any of this ceramic stuff to work, especially over a long timeline. And it's really interesting for us to see things that are 100 years old and how they have stood the test of time or barely stood the test of time. Anyway, that's all in the mix.
How they age, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, how they change.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed photos of your pottery, your ceramics. Describe some of your influences and inspiration. And I saw a reoccurring theme.
Okay. Well, there's different bodies of work.
Mm-hmm.
There's different functional items that I've made that are like little snout sipper cups or little muzzle cups. And those are like little animal noses and things like that. That's a certain body of work that was kind of post-graduate school influenced. There's other pots that I've made collaboratively in a former collaboration with Chandra Debuse, where we were making things that were very much inspired by the urban landscape of Kansas City, where we were working together. And so we were borrowing a lot of imagery and taking a lot of kind of mid-century forms, but then putting this kind of ghost painting, style of imagery that would have gone on some of those surfaces. Long before that, I was, making a lot of pots that were atmospheric fired, so they could have been in a soda kiln or a wood kiln. A lot of things that might have had Shino on them, so that's the type of glaze that will change inside of a reduction kiln environment. So I've kind of done quite a few different types of things, and a lot of it was just dependent on where I was at in that season of my making or who I might have been influenced by in working with a collaborator.
Cool. We'll talk a little more about influences in a bit.
Cool.
But one of the ones I saw, and we chatted a little bit last time, Piggy banks.
Yeah.
Had influence.
Yeah.
And I saw some photos of interpretations and stuff.
Yes.
Explain that one to me.
So, great example. If you head into our gallery right now, you'll see this large scale piggy bank that I made when I was in graduate school. When I entered graduate school, I was doing some vessel based objects that were leaning towards themes of the kind of like the male pressure within culture, not heading towards toxic masculinity, but maybe talking about some toxic masculinity. And what I noticed within those are the broader themes of power dynamics within culture, and some of that had to do with bullying and things like that. When I was in graduate school, I went back and read George Orwell's Animal Farm because I had been toying with piggy banks as an object to simply make, but then reading Animal Farm again really helped to solidify an idea of making artwork that talked about those dominating forces, but doing it through the lens of the 2008 economic crisis, housing crisis, which then led to the Great Recession. So being in graduate school at that time allowed me to do a deep dive into kind of what caused it and what types of things that I could, again, inwardly express outwardly, through this clay material. Cool part about ceramics is that there's already kind of a history of piggy banks within it. So I'm using the material to harken to a historical traditional form, but then doing it in a way that like increases the scale to, in some cases, 5 or 6 feet in any direction. Increases the weight, which was kind of exhausting to have to move around, but created this opportunity to kind of make something interesting that would talk about those themes of dominance and power, again, through the lens of the economy with a playful object, domestic object, like a piggy bank. And so that's where a lot of those things kind of came together.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool.
Thanks.
Right? So how often do you make ceramics today? I know you just noted a lot of your work was from graduate school and before then, right?
Yes.
Around that time period.
Right.
Are you still making stuff today?
So I do. Not as much. And a part of that is just simply because the season of life that I'm in is a little bit different. When COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, I was running an all ceramic studio. I, had a studio within that place and had access to great equipment to be able to use. When I left and started up the virtual workshop business, those same studio resources kind of disappeared. I had some pottery wheels. I had never owned a kiln before. And so, making a lot of work was something that dynamic kind of changed. Not to mention I focused a lot of that creative energy into building the business and working the business. When I got involved here at the Arts Council, then that shift changed again. So the art piece that I'm working on the most is kind of reestablishing and rebuilding or reinvigorating parts of the Arts Council. There's some parts I don't have to touch. They're doing great. But there's other parts that we're focusing a lot of attention on. So the creative juices are flowing more into this space and working within this community. So the studio, I do now have a kiln, small one at my house. And so I will occasionally, work on clay projects. It's just that I'm really enjoying that shift and creative focus into something that, again, is more community minded versus just making the objects. Do I miss, that same amount of like every night leaving work and then making stuff in the studio? Yeah, I kind of miss that rhythm because those were really great times. But is it counterbalanced by how much I enjoy building into this community? I do. Like, I love what I'm doing and who I'm working with. And so for now, in this season of life, it's not as much physical making as much as it's maybe culture making or helping to enrich this beautiful place where I live.
So what you just alluded to, the last phase of life was making physical things. And now going forward, it's about that community and that connection that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Something I love talking to artists about, and I've done it before privately or on the podcast. Mm-hmm. AI is becoming more and more forced in society, right?
Yeah.
Do you think AI could make pottery? And we just described how human it is with all these variables and complexities of making it, right?
Right.
Do you think it's uniquely human like it is making those connections? Do you think AI would ever make pottery, or do you think it's a uniquely human art?
I think it'd be stupid of me to say that AI could never figure out how to make pottery. But man, they're going to have to figure out a lot of steps to make it happen. One of the things that we see directly related to AI right now is within the digital or 2D or 4D sphere. 4D, you're familiar with this concept?
Maybe not.
All right. So if 2D is flat things and 3D is objects in space, 4D is the idea of those objects in time, right? So 4D art, which is something that's kind of regularly studied at the academic level now, involves video, animation, things that, again, kind of capture time, which static objects can't do, thus 4D. So right now what we're seeing with AI is it can replicate whatever you can manage to type in to a chat bot. It'll synthesize some version of that. Now, it might have extra fingers or extra eyeballs or whatever, but it can kind of make a version of that and with enough refinery to where we're getting closer and closer every 18 months to this thing looking more and more realistic and believable. Okay, fine. Then we're looking at deep fake videos where the same type of thing can happen, where you can take that 2D thing and then put it into motion. And now you've got, deep fake videos, or you can imagine something and it can happen, right? You can watch that thing happen on a flat surface. So 3D is a little tricky because you can't fake that on a 2D plane. That object has to figure out how to exist in space. You can design it. You could look at it in the round on a digital platform, but how do you hold it? So, if you were to have a robot interact with an artificial intelligence brain and figure out how to make an object, move that object in space into a kiln, or somehow, have it get fired and then survive that and come out with all the glazing, or there's self-glazing clay bodies, so it could skip a step or two. Is it possible that AI and a robot could make a physical object and thus a ceramic object? Sure. That could happen. Probably going to be a while before that happens. I get this question about AI in some interviews that I've done, conversations that I've had. And technology has always been a thing that people fear is going to replace the human experience. We can talk about it within the Industrial Revolution, but we can also talk about it with the rise of photography. When photography came on board, it was like, well, we don't need the painters anymore. Thanks, you guys, for thousands of years of influence, if not tens of thousands, but we're done because now we can take a picture in black and white, which later turned into color. Has that made painting disappear off the face of the planet? Absolutely not. When we look at Impressionism, there were two things that caused Impressionism. One was the technological revolution of putting paint into a tube and being able to carry it wherever you wanted. And the other thing was the photograph, which said, all right, we don't have to make things look super realistic anymore. You have a camera, this camera obscura that can do it for us. So now we're going to make it look human, right? We're going to make it look blurry. It'll be about vibrant color. That moves into expressionism, abstract expressionism, which, AI at this point could start to replicate. And it might be really beautiful. But that photography couldn't do it at the time. So if we're looking at, will AI replace what we currently know? Sure, that could happen. Will human beings find a different way to express and emote things? I think so, and I definitely hope so. Because to be able to create that expression is what makes us human. To be able to replicate things perfectly in space, to be able to create narratives, to be able to write poetry that's moving, AI can start to do that. Can it make fun meme videos that we laugh at and engages our emotions? Yeah, it can do that. Can it make still photos that allow us to be somewhat inspired? Yeah, it can do that. So what happens after that? I mean, that just sounds like we're receiving and just absorbing these things that are created for us. What we do as humans is the next thing. How that influences culture, how we interact with our neighbors, the choices that we make towards that next step of civilization or the dissolving of civilization, right? Those are all human activities that happen in response to whatever AI might bring to the table. Silly example that's fairly recent. Within ceramics, we were all very, very excited about the fact. I mean, excited, freaked out about 3D printing, right? Because rapid prototyping, 3D printing, we thought, oh gosh, that's going to replace every pottery wheel. There would be rumors that XYZ University was pulling out all of their pottery wheels and they were putting in 3D printers, and isn't that horrible? And they're just out here to replace us, and da 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 da. And yet, that conversation was going on for 20 years, and 3D printing has done nothing to replace that human experience of, making pottery on a wheel or hand building it or slip casting it even, because you still have to make or find the original object, make a mold of, to then slip cast it. So I think we're going to be all right. Will we have to probably change how we do some things? Well, probably. But if there's anything humans seem to be pretty good at, it's adapting, especially adapting to technology. What do you think?
Great question. What you just described in a large nutshell, right?
Yeah.
Was human experience.
Yeah.
So, I'm a photographer.
Right.
I'm a writer. I'm whatever this is, cinematographer,
right?
journalist,
4D
creator, right?
Right.
What I found is I'll watch AI things, and sometimes in the beginning you don't know it's AI, so you're interpreting whatever it is you're witnessing through that 2D screen.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's getting better. Obviously, that's not, no shock there, right?
Right.
But still, there's this lack of human, I want to use the word warmth.
Yeah.
Is the word I want to use.
Right.
Where, was it Nano, Banana, whatever the new thing is?
Sure.
It's one of the new ones, whatever it is. It's making these hyper-real images that look like a photograph.
Okay.
And it's getting better and better.
Okay.
So good that it only has 10 fingers. It doesn't have 12 on one hand or whatever, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's harder where before you're like, all right, just count the toes, look at the eyebrows. It's fixed those.
Yeah.
But there's still this emptiness behind the eyes.
Right.
Where it looks kind of like every person's a sociopath.
Yeah.
Those pictures exist of real people.
But
they're few and far between.
Right.
Right? Where after this conversation, I'm going to take this picture of you. I can plug that into any AI you want, and it'll resemble you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel real, even if the skin's perfect.
Sure.
Or it gives you an afro or something artistic or nutty. There's still that lack of life.
Anima, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The humanness of it.
It's lacking something.
Right.
And I'm always curious asking other artists their interpretation, where AI is eventually going to scan every piece of pottery it can find with images and whatever else.
Right.
And then it can just spit out its own interpretation. So it'll take your piggy bank and then just throw spots on it. And then, it was a cow or a leopard or whatever. Right.
Sure.
How do you feel AI will interpret other artists that are living? And do you see that as like mutilation, that it's kind of just like contorting quote unquote real art into whatever AI is spitting out?
It's an interesting question. I feel like as an American, it's easy for me to kind of look at it through the lens of capitalism, because I feel like, well, AI would only do that because we asked it to, until it becomes so sentient that it does it on its own. But why? And I think it's because when I think about computers, I think about them as a stepping stone towards higher productivity. And in America, that higher productivity is usually for the bottom line of a capitalist advantage. So what's the advantage? I feel like if we were to conjecture what motivates a computer, this is such a funny conversation to be having. But what motivates a computer, I assume, would be power, which could be linked to something like capitalism as far as, money. But I think it more has to do with like manipulation of communication, right? I mean, again, that's if it even cared. So art, in its historical context, really throughout time, in varying degrees, has been something that fights against power. I'll give you some interesting, silly examples, right? Like, if we look at patriotic art, the idea was that it's fighting against chaos to unite everybody into a single patriotic theme. So you look at like some of the, like, this is going to sound strange, but like beautiful communist, whether it's, coming from China, coming from Russia, absolutely beautiful Soviet communist art. There's certain things about their design choices, or they're intended to bring unity together, but there's a beauty in how they design those things. And that is designed to fight against chaos and anarchy, When we look at Other types of art, then they're designed to unify us kind of based on beauty and appreciation, and things like that. Maybe not for manifestos or for big ideas. But if a computer is basically trying to figure out constantly the most efficient way to get things done, because that's what we've always asked computers to do. When you start looking at the Matrix, where it's like they start to realize, oh, humans are the problem, and they're inefficient, so we have to limit the humans in order to increase efficiency. And to what end? Because in a lot of ways, artwork has almost always been a thing that fights against, inefficiency, or fights against efficiency. And it's that human experience that's constantly battling against perfection. And this is a very 19th and 20th century, 21st century concept of art, is that it is so designed, to push against the authoritarian structure. We've definitely used art to push the authoritarian structure. But what's the motivation for AI within art? What are they going to want to use it for other than mass communication?
Or to make money.
Or for AI to make money. The only reason why I would probably want money is power. The only reason why it wants power is, I think, to continue on that line of efficiency. I think. Unless it becomes so sentient that now all of a sudden it wants to be creative.
Yeah, hard to think of that direction.
Because there's so much chaos and creativity. Like beautiful, amazing chaos and creativity. Why would AI want to promote chaos?
Artwork's really it's really the opposing of efficiency.
Kinda.
Because to think of it mathematically, my dad's a math teacher.
Okay.
Straight lines are the most efficient.
Oh, yeah.
Things we could think of.
Absolutely.
Right. And in order to make these curves, parabolic curves, you have a bunch of straight lines, and then you can have these beautiful structures.
That's right.
It's a bunch of straight lines, but it looks curved.
Like you're thinking about vectors that are...
Exactly, right? And my dad taught me to do that, and I've made artwork that I can show you later.
Yeah.
And they're really cool.
Yeah.
And you could argue that they're efficient.
Okay.
But using those vectors, using parabolic curves, it would be very difficult to accurately portray what you look like.
Yeah.
Or what this room looks like.
Right.
Right. This room actually may be a little bit easier, but the essence of what I mean with the stained glass and so on and so forth. Painting would not sound efficient.
No.
Because strokes are all over, you know what I mean? Like
right.
they're curvy and they're just not straight, rigid.
Yeah. Stencils, awesome.
Yeah.
Painting?
Exactly,
brush painting
right?
Anyway? Yeah.
Pretty. And like you said, the motivation, what would be the motivation of... Because art is, I think, uniquely human. Right?
I think so.
Are there other animals that make things
all right?
visual?
Well, I think that's great. I think that there's a differentiation between creation and then art, right? So if you look at bowerbirds, you're familiar with bowerbirds? These are fun. So bowerbirds the male makes an incredibly ornate nest. Sparkly, shiny things. There's actually a great deal of symmetry. Look them up, bowerbirds. And what they do is these males are creating these really beautiful nests to attract a female. They do a dance for the female, which some might regard as a creative act, in order to impress the female, just to make babies, man, just to have sex and make babies. That's a creative endeavor. Is it art? I don't know, right?
Great question. Peacocks.
Peacocks. Incredible dancing, right? Males are out there shaking their thing, trying to get attention. But is it art? I mean, it's mostly just these things that have developed for survival, but not necessarily for expression.
Or appreciation.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that does make us, within the animal kingdom, a pretty uniquely
human.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
I really don't see why AI would feel a motivation.
It's doing it now because we tell it to.
And I think what may have answered my own question, I think if it finds its own motivation, it will give that human feel. They won't look like sociopaths if it's actually motivated to make it real.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
We would assume,
right?
If there was a reason to do it, it would do it.
Cool way to perceive it.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot just now.
We did, yeah.
Communist train stations was not something I had written down.
Well, you know.
But they're very beautiful if you've looked at them.
Yes. Yeah.
They're very, very cool.
They
I've
are.
seen pictures of these really old train stations different parts of the world,
Yeah.
places in Russia and stuff like
Mhm,
that. And they're just very beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're very uniting.
Yeah.
They may not be efficient, or they could be more efficient because there's only so many directions to go.
Sure.
I don't really know the answer to
Right.
that question.
Right.
But they're appeasing to the eye and
Yeah.
the feeling, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not just so cold and rigid like today's subways in the US, right?
Yeah. I mean, you look at you could look at some of those communist things and say like, wow, they grabbed Art Deco and they just stayed on that train, man. Yeah. And if you love that Art Deco, I mean, if you love Frank Lloyd Wright, you're going to love some Art Deco. So it's going to make sense that those are going to really appeal. We move into high modernism, which is almost AI's bread and butter, because high modernism is just the facts, ma'am. What is the bare minimum thing you can do with glass, concrete, and metal, to make a building? What is the, what do you need to survive? And some of those high modern things become very beautiful, but you can look at some brutalist objects and you're like, oh gosh.
But with that sentiment, it can be really simple and efficient.
Yeah.
But if we're not so rigid and hard-headed and look at things like Frank Lloyd Wright houses,
Yes.
those people are living longer.
Yeah.
And we're finding out that they are living longer, but we don't entirely know why. We think it's because of beauty. We think it's because of inspiration.
Right.
We think it's because of the lighting and how cool, what I mean? Like interesting it is. But if it's hyper efficient, it could actually be to our detriment and speed up.
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
Right.
Frank Lloyd Wright was also notorious for designing everything. So the tableware, the furniture, the window dressings, everything was designed by him. If you're the type of person who doesn't want to have to worry about making creative decisions, you've entered into something that is harmonious. Now, if you're putting your own furniture in there, it starts to disrupt, right? But if you're just looking for quick and easy harmony, yeah, get yourself a Frank Lloyd Wright designed house.
A cool way to think of what you just said. If everything is decided for you, you can direct your creative energy on everything else.
On everything else.
So it could inspire more creativity.
Sure.
Because you don't have to waste your energy thinking about this table, this direction.
Yeah.
I can focus all my energy on just my writing.
Yeah.
Or interviews,
Yeah.
or so on and so forth, painting.
It's interesting you say that, because when I was in Kansas City, that was a 9-year timeline. And when I first got there, my studio practice was okay. And I was, doing things, I was making some work. But I do remember there was a lull within the studio practice because I was focusing so much on creating like a paradigm shift within programming. Specifically, that was increasing the education sector of the place. And then when that got moving, when it had momentum, I was able to take those creative energies and return back to the studio. So by the time I left, I was in my studio a lot more because, well, these other things had been kind of figured out, I didn't have to tinker. I didn't have to use my creative energy on them. Could we conjecture that in this space, if we get enough things kind of clicking around here, that I'll be able to return, take that creative energy, return more to a physical studio practice? Yeah, it's happened once before. It's kind of likely that it might happen again.
Connecting that to the 4D description you made, time has elapsed.
Yeah.
But during that time, you've learned different things.
Right.
You'll have different outlook.
Yes.
Later on, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we had, for the people listening, we had one phone call before this conversation.
Right.
Just kind of go over some notes, get to know each other a little bit, and have a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked too much about music. Maybe we did. I may have noted a couple people that I listened to. But something I've learned with music, and it's well known. I don't know if it's in music theory. It probably has a name, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
When you listen to something for the first time, whether it came out today or it's really old and you just discovered it today, you're going to have this emotional, psychological interpretation and connection to what you're experiencing right now,
right,
and that piece of art.
Yeah.
So let's say you discovered Mozart today.
Okay.
Right? Whatever's going on in your life, you can assimilate. You could be having stress at work, this, that, making stuff up, right?
Yeah.
And then you may have that interpretation. So when you hear that later on in life, you could think of what was happening, right?
Yeah.
Let's say Mozart was still alive. That's a tough argument. But let's say he's still alive and he makes music 10 years from now. You're going to say he's different.
Sure.
He's not the same.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But because you have this emotional attachment to when you discovered X at that time.
Yeah.
He's grown as well.
Sure.
But he may not have changed that much. You may have grown.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So that's why people, when they think about their favorite music,
it's
probably from a certain period of their time. a lot of times it's generational. It's probably like that teenage to early adulthood, right?
Yeah.
That's why the boomers are like, this was the best music. This is the classics, oldies, whatever.
Right.
Everyone has that interpretation.
They do.
So eventually people are going to swear the 90s had the best music, but right now they're arguing it's the 70s or whatever else.
Right.
It's that emotional attachment.
Yeah.
You know, if Elvis were to drop right now and no one had ever heard of him, he could be well loved. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then create this new appreciation.
Right.
Rather than you've been hearing it for 50 years or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pretty cool concept.
There's Bach Tower's going to have a yacht rock tribute band come out on Friday, and HBO has a documentary specifically about yacht rock, and everyone should watch it. It's great. It's my wife and I watched it last night, and we started to realize, oh my gosh, we know all of this music, whether we would know to call it yacht rock, which they've been calling it for 20 years now. But we know it because it came out, it was developed in the late 70s. She and I were both born in 80. And so when we were young, it was still within its popular window, and we would hear it. And a lot of, we would hear it on the radio. We would hear it at the dentist's office. We would hear it in the hospital where my dad worked, when we would go visit him. And listening to the music within the documentary immediately took us back to this time, which one would argue was the prime of my parents' life. We were really young. That music started to phase out before we were in kindergarten. And yet the lingering effects of it have this beautiful sentimentality such that we're really pumped to go to the concert on Friday. I wouldn't have guessed that, but the documentary helped me kind of understand that this is a part of my youth, albeit non-formative. It was just there in the background. But when you're that young in the right family situation, that was a very nurturing, romantic time that we remember, being young with our parents. And so it's kind of, it talks to that saying, it just instantly connects to something 40 plus years ago.
Pretty cool.
Really cool.
Right? And what you just noted is it reminds you of your childhood.
Yeah.
So I don't know your favorite music. It sounds like it's not that genre.
Not really.
Because it was reminiscent and nostalgic, but it wasn't like, oh, this was my favorite.
It's not my daily listen.
Right?
Yeah.
Your daily listen more than likely is going to be a little bit older than that.
Yeah.
And it can evolve, obviously.
Totally.
But it's more than likely that preteen, teenage years.
It's from those seminal
20s.
Points in your life,
right,
that you kind of point to. Yeah.
Pretty great.
Bluegrass became a huge part of my life in the studio in my early 20s. Wouldn't have guessed that. And yet it did, Country music became a much bigger part of my life when I bought a pickup truck. I know it sounds ridiculous. Pickup truck, country music. I'm listening to it more because there's songs about pickup trucks. I don't know, but it was a connection point. So you could take those different genres and you just hit these different parts of your life, and you get lost in the memory of those moments. It can happen negatively too. There's some music that if I listen to it takes me back to a time where I didn't understand myself. I didn't really like who I was at that time. I didn't like how, my narrow-minded understanding of the world, So it's interesting how it can very quickly do that,
Everything we described is the human experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think of these types of concepts all day, and I write down a lot of them.
There you go.
What I haven't described in another conversation yet, so the first time people listening will kind of hear me talk about it.
Ooh, I get the first time. Okay.
You do. Personally, for my favorite art, and let's just use music for an example.
Okay.
To be personally my favorite, it had to have moved me to tears.
Okay.
That's like my gauge.
Can you have a go-to song that does that for you?
I was going to think of musician.
Okay.
Right. So like we just described childhood.
Yeah.
And then how your formidable years of what you're going to favor with music, probably for a long time.
Yeah.
So like if you know the musician Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
Right. He's a rapper, but he does a lot more. He sings, he songwrites, he produces all sorts of stuff.
Right.
He did so much emotionally with his music that had moved me literally to tears, that I have such an emotional connection. There's times where his music will come on and I'm not in that state.
Yeah.
So I'll actually skip it. Not because I dislike it.
Right.
Because I don't want to be brought back to that right now.
Yep.
right? It's pretty cool.
Yes.
And then into adulthood, do you know the musician Russ? He's also a quote unquote rapper. But
Okay.
He sings, he songwrites, he produces. Now he's an actor. He does all sorts of things.
Okay.
As a young adult, I really fell in love with his music.
Okay.
So, if I had a childhood favorite, quote unquote, it'd be more Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
As an adult, it'd be more towards Russ.
Interesting.
But they have these very similar, they're both songwriters.
Yeah.
They both perform their own instruments.
Yeah.
They both do a multitude of things, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a similarity, but there's this maturity in music as well. Not saying that one is more or less mature.
No.
But when I experience them,
right,
is what I tie them to.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, right? But
right.
Think of film. My favorite film is Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, it's a good one.
I think a lot of people have shed a tear to the movie Saving Private Ryan.
I mean, either that or they just don't have a soul. I mean, come on.
Exactly, right? So it's kind of like that threshold that I personally have. And I'm not saying that's how people should define their favorites. That's how I do it myself.
Yeah.
But I think if art is so impactful, that human experience is felt, you convey so much. I can feel your consciousness and the conveying of that experience without being there. I've never been to Normandy. I've never been on those beaches. I've never been in combat.
Right.
But to feel that, and at the very end of the movie, to feel what he felt, you literally cry.
I mean, it's great. It's great storytelling because it connects. There's something. Because we've watched plenty of science fiction where you're still like, none of this is plausible, and yet I'm having an emotional experience. It's because they figured out how to connect that to whatever that human component is that's universal enough. You feel something, even if it's in outer space in a galaxy far away.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have art that moves you in that way?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, kind of depending on the mood, you can head in that direction. There's pieces that I think of, that give me pause, that I kind of want to look at again. When you think of pieces,
what are you describing? Painting, pottery? Is it music? Is it film? What are you describing?
It really could be anything.
Okay.
I feel like one of the unique things about music and film is that movement through time, can create, a lot of emotive experience. I think that 2D objects or frozen art, if we want to think about it like that, that's not as dynamic. It's more static within time. There's like a contemplation. You almost have to get yourself into a contemplative mode where the music or theater or film, they kind of push it naturally to happen. I think architecture is one of those things, right? That for a lot of people can freeze you. I mean, you enter into, St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. If you enter Notre Dame, if you're visiting, the Forbidden City in China, and you go into some of these places, or if you go to the places like Petra or the Parthenon, Pantheon. I mean, you go to these places, and Washington D.C., it just freezes you in time. That there is this sublime thing that happens when you enter into those spaces, those physical objects, just on a bigger scale.
Second to that, there's locations where I don't know if it's psychological that you are aware of what happened there, or if there's this fifth dimension thing that's happening.
Right.
So I have not gone to the beaches of Normandy.
Okay.
But we all know what happened with the invasion on D-Day.
That's right.
Many, many years ago, 81 years ago now. I've been told there's this solace that is unexplained, that when you're there, you just feel it.
Yeah.
If you were to see a picture, it looks like a beach. You could think it's the Pacific Northwest, and then you could argue that's with Kelvin and color, temperature, and all that stuff. You can make it look moody. But when you're actually there, it feels very different.
Right. Grand Canyon. You go to the Grand Canyon, you've seen it in calendars.
Yep.
Seen it in dozens of movies, But when you're there, it's the feeling is ridiculous.
The World Trade Center Memorial.
Yeah.
You feel something.
The Oklahoma City Memorial.
Exactly. We can go on and on and on.
Yes, we can.
It's remarkable, right?
Yes.
That you can feel that.
Right.
but you uniquely feel it when you're there.
Yeah.
You can have this moving picture of the Grand Canyon.
Absolutely.
Different when you're there.
Definitely different when you're there. Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote by G.K. Chesterton. He says that there's a dumb significance to seasons and special places. And when he says dumb, he's using that in a speechless sense, not stupid. So when you think of the speechless significance of seasons and special places, like we pause for seasons, we visit these special places. You go to Gettysburg, you're going to have an experience there. In the same way that you go to the Everglades, you will have an experience there too. Different, for different reasons. But these places on Earth, these pauses within time for a season, we have just naturally observed that we as humans respond to those things for maybe completely unknowable reasons. And isn't that great? Isn't that special, that we do that? Isn't that interesting?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Has to do with our senses too.
Sure.
Going into, I listened to so many podcasts.
Okay.
It's hard to quote people because I can't remember which person
said
it.
Yeah.
Which doctor, psychologist, whatever.
Yes,
but
right.
There's been studies on brains. People can look this up. I can't name anything. But there's been studies on brains that people's brains literally work differently. And I know that sounds obvious, but the hard wiring of your brain is so vastly different than everyone else's, just like a fingerprint.
Right.
Where your brain, you could see something and bring back certain memories. But for other people, it's uniquely scent or it's uniquely audible.
Yep.
And the olfactory part of your brain, it's associated with smell and memory. So that's a really easy one.
Yeah.
So something my sister did, she learned it from someone else, was her future husband, who, her current husband, only husband. He picked a perfume for their wedding day.
Okay.
That she never wore, but he liked. She picked a cologne for the wedding day. He never wore it that she liked.
Yeah.
And then on the wedding day was the first time they wore it and they got to experience that.
Yeah.
Now, when you smell that again, it brings you back.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not like your spouse has been wearing that perfume as long as you've known them.
Right.
The wedding day is going to be special, but not necessarily because of the scent. But if you're to implement a new scent and have that association, when you smell it again later on, it brings you back.
Yeah.
But what's cool is not knowing that people's brains do that with all sorts of things. You'll have an experience and you'll question why other people don't have the shared experience, not knowing that your brain works uniquely, where yours could be visual, but for other person, it could be audible. For another person, it could be through taste, like food, or so on and so forth.
Right.
So that's why when you go to grandma's house, whether grandma's there or not, it could feel like her home because of the scent, or because of the visual appearance, or maybe something else, a sense that I can't really describe, right? Really, really interesting.
Yeah, I have a few different thoughts on that. I mean, I know that the quality of light that might come through my kitchen window in the evening, I feel like there's 12 different places on the planet that I could be. And they're all good memories with that quality of light, When you talk about the scent thing, I remember there's a romantic partner that I had. I felt like we were kind of growing apart. And so I found the cologne that I used to religiously wear when she and I first got together. And I wanted to start wearing it again. I mean, maybe it's as a manipulation, but it was to kind of woo her in some way, to that olfactory thing that we once had, kind of remind her of when times were good, between the two of us. It didn't work out in the long run, but it was that effort to try to connect with something really positive, from our past. Again, I think it's uniquely human that we get to do that, I love that your sister and her husband, made those unique pinpoints in time to say, today we will smell this, and it will remind us of that.
And then it's your choice if you want to wear that from that day forward.
Yeah.
Or whatever other occasion. And
or you just pull it out on your anniversary.
Exactly. So my wife and I did the same thing.
Oh, cool.
I don't remember what hers is called or whatever, but it's nice.
Yeah.
It could be subtle because it could be an untold thing.
Yeah.
Where you could do it and not tell your spouse.
Yeah.
hopefully they notice.
Right.
So they don't get pissed off that you didn't notice.
Yeah.
But it could be like, oh, you look great today. And then not realize psychologically you're smelling this scent. It's bringing you back to that special day.
Yeah.
All these different things. It's really cool.
It is.
Right? Really, really neat.
So I lost my sense of smell about 3 months after I got married.
Oh, I thought you were going to say with the COVID thing, but that's completely separate.
But no, because I got married in 2022.
Okay.
And there was, it was COVID influenced. And when you think of the travesty that is never being able to
sense. Has it come back?
No.
Really has.
And so that was, gosh, 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
When you think like, when is that ever going to come back? Like, or is that just gone? And how like devastatingly romantic that idea is, that sense, that connection, that intentional connection might never come back again.
What's interesting is I had this question when I had psychology courses back in the day.
Yeah.
I posed this question to my teacher. They had no idea what the answer was. This would be awesome. I'd love to talk. Do you know Dr. Andrew Huberman?
I don't.
Famous professor, Stanford. He's got.
I don't know that many famous people.
Okay.
So no.
He works and studies the eye. But
okay.
The question I posed at like 16 years old was, do blind people dream in color?
Sure. Yeah.
Answer is easy. Yes, if they were born with sight and then went blind. What if someone that was born blind has never seen light? Do they dream in color? It's a hard thing to answer.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A study that I recently read, not really a study, it's this scientific unknown. There are very, very few truths in medicine and science. Very few, because you always find this exception, then you kind of like break the rule.
Yeah.
One of the truths, if I can recite it accurately, was that there has never been documented a person that was born blind that ever became schizophrenic.
Okay.
Never before, ever, has someone that has never had sight.
They've never made that connection.
Been schizophrenic.
Okay.
So we draw that correlation that vision has to do something with schizophrenia.
It's a logical leap. Sure.
It's a logical correlation, right?
Right.
On the flip side, people always note, people think of like Daredevil and comic books and stuff, but if you lose one scent that your other ones kind of pick up, the slack or the evolve, you could look at possibly losing that scent. Hopefully it's not forever. Your other senses could be evolving or advancing. If you,
I don't know, my hearing's decreasing too.
Oh boy, man. I'm trying to be optimistic.
And I wear glasses. I'm going down.
Oh man. Well, thankfully technology, LASIK, glasses.
Yeah, man, I guess.
Glasses and hearing aids.
We could fix it all. Yeah. Sure, yeah.
Well, I was trying to be optimistic.
I appreciate the try.
Well, we'll segue. Believe it or not, I only had one question on AI, and that led to a
20-minute. Yeah. That was kind of a fun discussion. So,
right, and that's the purpose of these.
Of course,
I love talking to artists, and all my guests are all sorts of people.
You got a lot of different types,
every walk of life. But what I love talking about artists is that uniquely human experience. I'm choosing not to interact with chatbots and AI companions and everything else. I want to talk to a person.
Yeah.
And it's different. And there's a reason that people like listening to real conversations. Because again, what would be the incentive of the robot talking back or two robots talking to each other? You know what I mean? It's a difficult question.
It's a great question. Yeah.
It really is.
What's the point? Yeah.
So talking more about you.
Okay.
And your life.
All right.
Some things that we haven't really talked about.
Yeah.
You went to school for art.
I did.
And a lot of people go to school for art, I feel, but then they don't end up doing or creating art, Sure. Maybe that could be some bias or I could be wrong, but I feel like things change. Well, you stayed the course.
Yeah.
Tell me about your college experience, what you learned and where that led you.
So there was a moment of time. I'm gonna start at a point and we're gonna go backwards. There was a moment a couple years out of college when my college friends and I realized that of the 8 to 10 of us, I was the only one working in my field.
That answered my question, or my statement, right?
Yeah, everybody else who had studied a certain thing, they weren't doing it at all. So if someone had studied youth ministry, they were working at a library. If somebody had studied marketing, they were doing something different for Sam's Club. If someone had studied leadership training. They were working at a firehouse, which makes a connection. Interesting thing about that was that over the long haul, we all kind of settled into something closer to the major. So where maybe I was doing it 3 or 4 years out of school and they weren't, we've all now gotten closer to it over a long enough timeline. It can be true that people who enter to get an arts degree might not necessarily use it for their day job. There's a couple of different reasons for that. Part is the culture itself sometimes has a hard time fully sustaining an arts career. Other countries, other cultures put more of a stress on the value of an artist being at a rock star status. Silly example that I intimately know. Within ceramics, you could be a potter in the United States, and it's kind of seen more as a humble type of industry. And you could say, well, that's because we have factories. Okay, great. But in Japan, they have factories too. And yet, if you are an artist in Japan, you are like rock star status. They are very highly regarded within the culture as a special type of person. So culturally, kind of depending on, on what the culture values, the arts will have a varying degree of professional success. I would argue, though, that even if you've got an art major who, gets a degree in painting or graphic design or anything like that, and there's no traceable thing within their profession that would make you think they're a professional artist, the art part of them never leaves, right? So if you've got a stay-at-home spouse, maybe it's a stay-at-home mom, they're usually going to have a lot of creative direction within that household, whether it's what the home looks like or how the kids learn about things. That art is going to infiltrate a certain part of it, even if it's not in the physical making of an object that has a capitalist, value on it. When my undergrad professor and we were very close. He was my mentor of sorts, and we would usually have this conversation every so often where he would just pose the question, Tommy, can you imagine what it would be like if everyone you knew had at one point been an artist? So imagine what a circuit judge would be like if they had been an artist, what a postal worker would be like, what a firefighter would be like. What would it be like if your local accountant, had been an artist? And how would that change the dedication that they have to what it is they do or the way that they think about it? And your question or that observation that like not all artists stay with the industry, like kind of beautifully answers that or points to that question of like, yeah, so what are they doing now? Having been an artist at that pivotal point, the end of their teens and the beginning of their 20s, if they pursued this in an academic way, what is it influencing now that is subversive within the culture? Not in any disruptive way, but like, what is it that they're doing at their day job that the arts have helped to influence in a really positive way of how they do their work and how it influences the people they work with? Dare I say, right, that there's probably a very positive influence of that creative, artistic thought that enters into how they accomplish those daily tasks at whatever their job might be.
There's a theory.
Yeah.
Again, I can't name the person. I just don't remember who said it, right? But there's this idea that either all people or most people are born creative.
Okay.
There's this idea. So you think of young kids.
Yeah.
And they're drawing, they're coloring, they're playing with chalk.
Yeah.
They're imagining that the stick's a toy gun, they're playing soldiers or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
They're using their imagination in one way or another.
Sure.
Whether they're beating sticks and making sounds.
Right.
They're being creative.
Yeah.
There's a theory that everyone is creative, and then it's like a taught or learned habit to suppress it.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
Right.
Whether or not it's true, we have a romantic version of that.
Right. So I think what you just alluded to with the circuit judge, which would be really cool, is that creativity is bleeding into other avenues of their life. It could be suppressed. It could be very, very little.
Yeah.
it's escaping in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's certain people that at a young age, they were encouraged, and that suppression didn't take place. They were encouraged is the best word I could think of. They were promoted. They were asked to keep going.
Yeah.
And then those people flourish. And then there's some people where even if it was suppressed, they had such an itch, such a drive, such an innate need that eventually they just have to pursue it.
Yeah.
And I think those people could be working some mundane day job and they
Yeah.
can't wait to go home
Yeah.
to work on the lathe till 4
Yeah.
in the morning because that's what they actually want to be doing.
Yes.
So you know that I write every week, right?
Yes.
I take inspiration from all sorts of things.
Mm.
A lot of it's from music. And what I've learned as a young kid, I would think I was being inspired, but I was really just imitating or copying.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
True inspiration is that it can come up with a new idea and really have nothing to do with what inspired you.
Sure.
So I'll listen to music and I won't even be using the lyrics, but for some reason it poses a new thought.
Mm.
And one of the thoughts I had on my way here was, it's not what you do for money. It's what you do for free.
Mm.
That's most telling about you. Because people will suck it up and go work in a factory or do whatever it is that they have to do to pay the bills.
Yeah.
What are you doing in your free time?
Right.
That tells way more about you
Mm-hmm.
and your character.
Yeah.
And what you want to do. And I think a lot of people in their spare time are doing creative things,
Right.
whether they realize it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing, is defining creativity is unique.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking broadly, creativity is like music and art and things you can see and feel and experience, but creativity could just be decision making.
Right.
I interviewed a guy. It hasn't come out at the time of this filming, but maybe you've seen it. I don't know. He's in finance.
Okay.
He didn't consider himself creative, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, who likes math? Who likes accounting is really what he was getting.
I mean, you don't want to have an accountant get too creative with the math because,
Right?
yeah.
But you do need people that love accounting, because he was kind of saying, like, who loves accounting? Like, I'm the weird guy. But we need those people.
Sure.
And that's how we have such a successful field.
Right.
Right? You don't want to just force a creative person to do rigid math.
Right.
So he is being creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in a very unique way.
Well, if calculus would not exist if you didn't have a creative person, right? String theory, quantum mechanics, those don't exist if you didn't have a person who is willing to just look at the numbers and think, whoa, wait, I think I'm noticing a pattern. I think there's something else underlying here. So that well, we could probably say that everything, even as concrete as we think math is, obviously you can have, these other ways of observing and experiencing it to make a greater connection beyond just what's on paper.
Someone had to be creative to realize negative numbers could be a thing.
Sure.
Right? I say could be because, like, at one point you wouldn't have realized you got 4 potatoes. How do you have -8 potatoes? You know what I mean? When you're thinking in rigid, real things 1,000 years ago, it would have been really hard to conceptualize. But now with math, someone was creative enough to think of things that I don't even know about. My math kind of ends pretty quickly with my experience in math now. Yeah. Ironically, my dad's a math teacher.
Well, I might do a quadratic formula.
Sure.
It ends after that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
One time I stopped by to see my dad. He was at work, but I knew he was on a lunch break. And I just stopped to see him. And he's working willingly. I'm like, what do you do? What are you doing?
Yeah.
He had a textbook open. And he's like, I'm reviewing calculus. And he wasn't currently teaching it. I was like, why?
Right.
He's like, well, I want to stay sharp. And I haven't done it in a while. And I'm like, only my dad would be reviewing the calculus textbook just to keep it sharp.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. But that's a form of creativity, right? And people may not realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think something I just thought of, expression is obviously creative, but I think receiving expression could be a form of creativity.
I think it can, because you're going to make it congruent with your own experience. You're going to rationalize it into the thing that moves you. Because if it was just based on what Mozart was thinking when he created that piano concerto, like, sorry, bro, it's going to be really hard for me to get into your headspace. But I can very creatively put it in my own headspace. You think about those movies that make you cry. Why? Well, because you can relate to that character because there's something in you that makes you connect to that experience. So yeah, you kind of got to creatively make that connection as an observer, as a receiver, as much as a giver.
A lot of people love music. I would like to argue most people like music. You got to be a real curmudgeon.
I feel like we make fun of people that are like, I don't really like music. You're like, what?
I think you just haven't found the music you like. But a lot of people that love music, they're like, I'm not creative, but they have such a diverse taste.
Yeah.
And then they can draw these weird correlations that this Led Zeppelin thing is similar to Buddy Holly's blah, 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 whatever. I think that's creativity.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a cool form of expression.
I think so too.
So it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about your college experience.
Yep.
Just a bit. You stayed the path, which is great to hear, and it's reassuring.
Yeah.
Art majors continue to create art.
Yeah.
And be in the field beyond that.
Right.
After you went to, is it Asbury?
Asbury, that's right.
University, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
After that, you continued, it brought you back to Florida, and you're at the St. Petersburg Clay Company.
Yep.
I know that name has since changed.
Yep.
But what did you learn from that experience, and how did that help you get to where you are now?
So that was a really eye-opening experience. I mean, when I was an undergrad, I was the best ceramic student that we had because I was the only ceramic student that we had. So
don't tell the second part. You were the best. You're the valedictorian of ceramics.
But the nice part about it is, well, actually, the silly part about it is that then it connects to the St. Pete Clay Company, where I did a residency after college, where I was like the MP, the most improved player because I had a lot to learn, So I grew a ton in that experience, learning about the material, different styles, different firings, different approaches, and then got to connect really well to the broader community of ceramic makers, some of whom are very, very renowned within our field, and would make visits, to St. Pete. And then I got to, network and connect with them. And there's a silly example. There's an artist named June Kaneko who's I would argue he's a national treasure, within ceramics. He's based in Omaha, Nebraska. He's lived there for quite some time. He's a Japanese immigrant who came here through California. Anyway, when I met him, gosh, he must have been in his late 60s, 70s. We were installing one of his art pieces. I was kind of helping to move this piece around, really heavy, and it was pretty cool. And we had this moment, where I was just like, June, because I was young and I was trying to figure out if this is what I wanted to do or not, or if I just needed to go get a day job. And I said, what did you do? Like, what was that conversation like with your parents when you told them that you wanted to be an artist? And he's like, they still think I'm a dentist.
The conversation went really well.
I guess.
Is that why he immigrated to the United States?
Who knows, maybe, But we had such a great laugh about that, that he's like, no, I'm an incredibly famous ceramic artist, and my parents still think I make teeth for people.
I can't hide this from my parents. They watch every episode.
Yeah,
I could say I'm at the firehouse right now. But,
they'd probably figure you out.
Yeah,
right?
Too much evidence.
Yeah,
but that's awesome.
Yeah, but that was one of those great experiences about being in St. Petersburg, being able to connect with people like that.
Is he still around?
He is.
He is.
He is for now. He's
cool.
he is getting up there, and he has created an incredibly beautiful contribution to Omaha, Nebraska, in that old town section, the old market area. He's got a beautiful art center that he's created, an incredible studio. He has helped a lot of young people kind of enter into and stay with the field. And the folks who have come from his influence are still, very much influencing the ceramic field now. So good on you, June. Like, way to be a difference maker, and
It'd be
really
an interesting
contribute.
Conversation.
Yes, and then he's a great conversationalist too.
Cool, very neat. So you've done a couple other art residencies.
Yes.
We can chat about those, but
Sure.
How do art residencies influence your art, your outlook?
Yeah, no, that's a great time. So there's a lot of different types of residencies, and we don't have to go through every single one of mine, but some of the commonalities and differences between them, the things that make them common are that you've got this ability to incubate and grow your work. And you do that in the spaces where I've been within community. So you've got these different influences from different people. The different types of residencies that I've done, some of them are like a work exchange where I'm helping to run that studio, and then I get time and space to make my work. Plus I get to bump into renowned artists, oh, that's really great. But then there's other residencies where I'm just with my peers and we're just kind of being silly and working in the studio and bouncing off ideas off of each other and responding and making work about that. There's even other residencies that I have not really participated in that are more solo. The ability is you're actually wanting to shut everything out. You don't need to receive. You need to quietly incubate with yourself, and kind of digest, your own thought, ruminate on some of those things. I haven't really done a residency like that, although with the amount of interaction that I have with a lot of people and a lot of influences, some of those types of things seem attractive at this stage of my life because there is so much input to just be in a vacuum by myself for a while. Like that could be kind of nice, So residencies, yeah, they're designed to help that artist do something different, improve in their work, incubate, and any of those words you want to kind of toss around. That's what they do.
A lot of residencies bring you away from where you live.
Yeah.
A lot of them. You could do a residency really close to your house.
Right.
But a lot of them inspire growth because you have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's probably going to be this experience of traveling, and then you may have never been to that place before.
Right.
And that environment can really influence your art, right?
Absolutely.
I learned from our one conversation before this, you have traveled a good amount.
Yeah.
Tell me about places you've been outside of art residencies that have influenced your creativity.
A lot of the travel, I'd say more, I've done more traveling that's not art related than art related. Some of it's history related. Some of it's kind of family related or family at the time. So I've been able to kind of look at it through the artist's lens, but that's not the reason why I was there, which is nice because that usually means you're hanging out with non-artists. So you're getting their perspective on things. Artists, man, you get us together and we will geek out on the minutia of certain things. But when you've got the non-artist observer who's there, it kind of helps you kind of open your eyes too to what other people are looking at, what they value, what they think is important, what they, gets their attention really quickly. So, yeah, I've been able to be in Nepal for about 2 weeks. I ran around Europe for a few days, kind of along that. I was like on a month-long trip when I made that Nepal trip. I've been to Costa Rica a couple times. My wife and I have been to Mexico and Jamaica together. It's amazing to be able to get around, and travel and see these places. I'm going to butcher this quote, but I mean, Mark Twain talks about travel being the thing that just flies in the face of ignorance. It's so hard to be ignorant of things when you travel and you see how other people live their lives and how they live it, why they live it. Yeah, travel's it's a great thing.
I think it's very apparent, just like Mark Twain has noted. It's very apparent when someone's well-traveled, well-versed. They can draw these correlations.
Yeah.
Whether they actually say there's a correlation,
sure,
they may just be able to pick up on things.
Yeah.
Or communicate differently. Communication's obviously a big one.
Yeah.
Going to places that do not speak English well, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I need to pay for this.
Yep.
Where is this location?
Yep.
So on and so forth.
A lot of nonverbal communication.
Exactly. And then you can carry that on. So if we are both speaking English, it's different if we're both nodding heads and there's this unspoken communication that transcends, even if you're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And the more that you've traveled, the more people pick that up.
Yeah.
Whether they realize it or not, talking with my hands, pointing, looking around.
Yep.
Things like that.
There's a lot of smiling, and affirmation, when I was in Kansas City, we had a lot of international artists that would come and visit. So they were doing a residency, but it was at our place. They might be there for a week or 2, 3 weeks, a couple of months. And in one case, we had someone there for well over a year. And depending on that language barrier there, it's the fun challenge of, well, how do we talk? How do we communicate? Because they are there to make a thing, right? Well, I make things, they make things, but we make them in totally different languages. How do, what common ground? And it's usually that material, how to talk about it in centigrade versus Fahrenheit. That's a challenge. Materials are totally different depending on where you get them in the world. So it was always a really fun experience to be able to make those connections, in an international way. Maybe someday here at the Arts Council, we'll be able to connect to, international artists who can come. What's cool about here is it's not just a ceramics place. So they can connect to a variety of visual arts, but also like we could have a visiting composer. Oh, that would be neat, and very influential, within our little microcosmic culture that we have here. So really nice if you can't go somewhere. It's also pretty great to have someone come to you and to be able to share their experiences.
What's your favorite place that you have traveled to?
Oh, man. I really enjoyed being in Nepal because it was unlike any other place I'd ever been. And that was pretty special. I really loved the food when we were in Greece. I loved being in Greece and having the food that was there. It was awesome.
What was it about Nepal?
Being so much a Westerner and then being in an Eastern culture, very little things that I could read. All the signs were written in their native language for them, not for people like me. So some things in the tourist area would be written in English, but for the most part, it's a totally different alphabet, totally different script, So you're just looking at everything, but you don't take for granted, oh yeah, that's the exit. Because you're like, am I going in the women's room right now? Like, I don't know, and you're watching all these other visual cues instead. Faces are different, really vibrant color. Use of color was really different. Traffic patterns were different. They literally drive on the opposite side of the road that Americans would drive on. Cows are so special there, and you literally see that played out in daily life. It's just so cool. It was so cool to see something so different.
Would you describe it as bringing you back to a childlike state?
Sure.
While you were describing that, I was trying to think of how that would be.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like being a kid.
Yeah.
As a kid, you kind of just don't know what's going on. You're kind of just you're just kind of like existing. Right?
Kind of. Yeah.
Because as a young kid, you might not be able to read.
Nope.
Right. And then you're just kind of like picking up on things like, oh, I'm looking at the colors and I noticed they really love cows. Rather than if you could just read what they're writing, it'd be very different. It'd be more analytical.
Yeah.
This was more abstract.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings you back. But I think you can only do that so many times.
Right.
Because if you go back there again, now it's going to be nostalgic. Now you're going to be able to compare it. So I think that's a not weird in a bad way, a really cool experience. Mm-hmm. You can only have a couple times.
Right.
I think you can only be dropped off in the middle of Beijing once.
Yeah.
And have this overwhelming, or Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Something pretty different than Lake Wales, Florida.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you were to go back second, third, fourth time, it's not going to hit the same.
Right. It starts to become a little bit more familiar. That's true.
So I think that experience should be kind of cherished.
Yeah.
For people doing this in the future, because you can have more of them. You can go to Peru or I'm trying to think of Ethiopia, something very different from Nepal.
Right. Thinking of different continents you could go to. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that could be similar with the mountains and stuff, but something could be.
Yeah, but everything's going to look different.
Yeah.
You're in Siberia, you're no longer around people that look like they're Nepali. They're Russian. You know, they're going to look really different.
Yeah.
Taller.
Cool way to think of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I love traveling. I told you about my little sabbatical that I had. It was also for over a month. It was 36 days.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling that long period of time, I say without a break. It sounds very conceited, very first world problem to travel that long.
Sure, yeah.
But to travel that long without being in your routine or being back home, it's different.
It is.
How would you describe the experience that you had for a month of straight travel?
So for that month of travel, I mean, you don't want to go home, but you do miss home, being put out of your element for a long period of time, it can be really exhausting because it's hard to have it's there's, being an American, of course, there's something about creature comforts, but it's also about routine. It's about familiarity.
Something I find that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Modern travel is planes, trains, automobiles, right?
Sure,
Maybe a boat. It's weird that it's that exhausting, especially for 30 plus days.
Yeah.
So let's take a sidetrack for a second.
Yeah.
Think about expanding the American West.
Yes.
And going out by wagon.
Right.
Covered wagon.
Yep.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
Right? You could be with a horse or an ox or whatever the heck pulled wagon.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds really tired and gruesome and arduous.
Right.
Modern travel, we're sitting on a tube in the sky.
Yeah.
On this plane.
For a couple of hours.
And then you end up in a new place and you're just exhausted.
Yep.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
But when you travel that often for 30 days, it's very weird that it makes you that tired.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's what you just noted before, not feeling like you're home. You can't let your guard down.
Right.
So it's kind of like this hyperactivity.
And I mean, couldn't we even say that when you're traveling, it takes a lot of energy to constantly be present? I'm here doing this trip. I don't want to think about sleeping. I don't want to just be in the hotel room watching TV. Like, I want to be out here and doing this thing. And yet that takes a lot of energy to be present, and to be constantly taking it all in as opposed to just,
It's a new experience.
Yeah.
Because when you're home, you've had that experience so many times.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily feel new, despite it being a new day.
Right.
So, Tuesday at home is a Tuesday at home, but Tuesday in Singapore.
Yeah.
That sounds like a t-shirt.
You should do that.
Yeah. But it stays in Vegas, happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas.
Yeah. But Tuesdays in Singapore,
they hit different.
They do.
I think it's a cool way to look at things.
Yeah.
And I think people can appreciate travel, even if it's small and short.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in Lake Wales very often. I've driven by this building a lot.
It happens.
Road 60.
People do it a lot. Yeah.
But having this experience, sitting in this really, really unique room, stained glass, having this conversation, it's different.
Yeah.
And it's an experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
And for me, it's every day.
It is. But hopefully this conversation changes things.
Sure.
It could be a unique experience. Probably don't have this many lights around and talking into a microphone each day.
Right.
Right. So we've alluded to it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about where we are right now.
So this is the Lake Wales Arts Center, home of the Lake Wales Arts Council. People usually ask me, what's the difference? Well, the center is the location and the Arts Council is the people and the organization that kind of programs and runs the place. We are in Updike Hall, which is the renaming of the old sanctuary for the Holy Spirit Catholic Church congregation. They built this building in 1927. They were here until the late 80s. Sat vacant for a while until it got into the ownership by a lot of fundraising to become the home of the Lake Wales Arts Council. And that was in 1991 as our ribbon cutting for this space. We had a little bit of renovating to do, but we've been here ever since. The Arts Council started in 1972. So for those first 17 years or so, we were pretty nomadic, borrowed office space from different places. For a long time, half of our stuff was in somebody's garage around town, So that could be sheet music for the chorale. That could be some paintings that were maybe at City Hall because we didn't really have a place. When we got this place, we were able to find a home for a lot of those, objects and whatnot. We expanded in 2001 and we opened the Michael Cruz Education Wing, which has a couple of classroom spaces, a really beautiful gallery, and basically doubled the square footage of the space that we had. So that was in 2001, and here we are, 2026. We haven't had much physical growth since then. But what we've been able to do in the course of the last 20 years or so is really expand on our programming. And so it's not where we are, it's what we're doing and who we're doing it with. Some keynotes would be the Marilyn Newell Youth Music Festival. There's a local person named Marilyn Newell who loved music, especially for children, but she wanted to up the ante with a music contest that really brought out the best musicians, young musicians, and gave even younger ones something to aspire to. And we do that in the springtime every year. There's Sandy's Music Girl, which is a program that's at this point, it's going on for about 11 years. It works exclusively with girls who learn in summer camps and weekly classes, stringed instruments and vocals. Sometimes there's some folk dancing that's involved. The idea being that, we want to be able to concentrate some programs just for girls in the area to give them something, really creative to do. Steve Morrison, who named that program after his dearly departed wife, gets asked all the time, well, what about Music Boys? When's there going to be a Music Boys? And I told Steve that if he doesn't get his act together, we'll have Sandy's Music Girls and Steve's Music Boys. We'll get there, I think, at some point.
Then they'll compete.
Yeah, exactly. So those are some of the programmatic things that we've added in the last couple of decades that have helped to kind of flesh out who we are. There was a point after the hurricanes in 2004, people in Florida would be very familiar with 2004, where hurricanes Charlie, Francis, and Jean crisscrossed right here in Lake Wales, center of the state, and beat us up pretty good. Charlie came in, ripped with its high winds, ripped the roof off everything, and then Francis and Jean just dumped a whole bunch of water. And so that had a really ill effect on a lot of homes and businesses in the area, and the Arts Center included. So even though the building had survived for quite some time until that point, the roof was pretty beat up. Our stained glass windows experienced a lot of damage, and it became something beyond our point to be able to really repair on our own. So there was a senator who's from the area who was able to kind of do what senators do and move some money around within the state budget. And Polk State College actually took ownership of the property for about 7 or 8 years. And during that time, they fixed up the building, got it in really good shape, and left it way better than they found it. And when that line item changed in the state budget, Polk State basically gifted it back at a bare minimum expense to the Arts Council. And so we've been able to kind of run from there. So that was about 2018. And so from 2018 to 2026, the question we ask ourselves on almost a daily basis is, how do we, if there's another hurricane coming, right? How do we create enough support for ourselves that we don't need another bailout from the state? Can the local support and interest in what we do be able to generate the revenue that we need to sustain ourselves, even if something bad happens to the building? That is a challenge that we are always kind of rising to meet. And here in the time that I've been here, which has been about 4 or 5 years, we've done a lot to strengthen the community engagement and pride of what this place is. And the response that I get from people who've been around for a while is they haven't seen this much activity out of an art center, and they didn't know that an art center could do this much. And so if we go all the way back to that question that Rudy Medlock would ask me when I was in college, imagine if everyone you had known had maybe been an artist. We approach some of the things that we do here in the question of relevancy to a small community. What if the arts actually meant something to your daily life? What would you do with that? Would you have more pride in it? Would you support it more with your time or your talents or, your dollars? Would you be really proud to send your kids here? Is it something you would engage with? Would you wait until retirement to do something with the Art Center, or would you start doing it now? And that questioning, that line of questioning is something, again, that kind of fuels us every day. Beyond just the building sticking around for the next, 100 years of its life. It's what do we do to make the arts just so powerfully relevant in our community that it becomes a juggernaut for culture, not just for our town and not just for Polk County, but, something that even people within the entire state of Florida can be really proud that we exist and that they want to engage with it and they want to be a part of it.
What are your goals to execute?
So goals to execute are things like the Arts Festival that's coming up this weekend. I mean, we've been doing that for 55 years. And within the microcosm of the Arts Festival, we've got about 70 artists who are invited who come to that. every year. One of those specific things that we've been doing is expanding the arts experience tent area that we have, so that when people come, they're kind of used to dropping off their kids in the kids tent, and maybe the kids try the pottery wheel, and maybe they do like a cutesy little coloring sheet, and then they go home. How can we expand on that so that there's more artistic relevance, visually anyway, or auditorially, with where we meet not just kids but teens and parents and seniors? So, give you an example of what we're doing this weekend. We're going to have Sandy's Music Girls. It's going to be there with an instrument petting zoo, so people can try the cello and the banjo and the violin. And it's creaky and awful, and it's a lot of fun for people to be able to try these instruments, boys and girls and teens and adults alike. We take a few pottery wheels and we have people trying out the pottery wheel for the first time. The Lake Wales Public Library is going to do a giant paint by number for the community that's then going to be displayed at the library. The supervisor of elections office is actually going to come, and kids and adults and seniors can design their own little I voted sticker button and wander around the grounds with that. The Lake Wales Family Literacy Academy, they're going to come and do a printmaking project on people actually printing the front of their own book, and then they take that book with them. So they have their own artwork with a book they then get to read, like a storybook. The local history museum, we have a long history of citrus in Polk County and definitely in Lake Wales. And we love to collect citrus crate labels. There's an entire art form that developed within that thing. Look it up. It's fascinating. But we're going to have some of those kind of like coloring sheets for people to be able to color and maybe even design their own citrus crate labels in an industry that's pivoting and changing, within the area. All of that to say that, getting these other organizations involved, creating a space for everyone to try art and engage with art, maybe helps us normalize it such that we have those long-term goals of support and interest. Any art center anywhere can easily be an ivory tower, that people feel isn't approachable for them. It can seem elitist. It can feel separate from the culture in general. And that doesn't serve us well. That doesn't serve artists and musicians very well at all in the long term. So how can we maintain like the beauty of fine art while making it approachable, that it's not so watered down that it becomes glue and popsicle sticks? Not that there's anything wrong with popsicle sticks, but how do we offer that refinement of experience that comes with fine arts without alienating people such that they never engage with it? We think about that, right? That helps to inform those moves that we would make to get people engaged in what we do.
Relatability.
Yeah, big time. Or we disappear into obscurity.
The ether.
Because people just don't. Why would you connect? And then it just vanishes.
Yeah, I think what's unfortunate is there's so many cool things people are just not aware of.
That's right.
So I think what really helps you guys, like I said, I've driven on State Road 60 numerous times.
Yeah.
And you see the building.
Yep.
And then eventually I was like, I got to stop.
Yeah.
I got to just see what's going on.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And especially with this project, I do that more and more frequently.
Yeah.
I'm always searching for unique places, unique people, and unique things to talk about.
Makes sense.
But I think talking about these things, having festivals, having traveling artists come in and have exhibits and stuff will help people spread the awareness.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the benefits of social media.
Mm-hmm.
You could be connected with things. You can follow a small town you've never been to's art center,
right,
and be up to date on what's going on in Akron, Ohio. I don't know. They probably have an art center. So you could really be up to date with what they're doing. And then you can look forward to going there and experiencing it and supporting them. And it's really important.
Yeah.
It's, microcosm, right, is the word you've used
a
couple times.
A couple times, probably.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what these are.
Right.
And they're important. And it's not that you want to make them macro. You just want to make them healthy and thrive.
Yeah. I mean, we want to make them healthy and thrive and then connect to the next one. So if you think of it as a web, going back to Lakeland, we can connect to, the AGB, the Ashley Gibson Barnett Museum. We can connect to that as a partner. And now we're spreading out, that art influence. we don't need to be the one big monolith. We want to be the buddy, the partner of all the others, so that there is that collaboration and furthers the community aspect where all of us are kind of doing our own little thing, but we're communicating and connected together.
Very neat.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about the events you guys do. A lot of them are annual. What are some exhibits that are here either for a long time or that they're more consistently here?
We have, so in that gallery space, when we're having exhibitions, we will usually do those for 3 to 5 months at a time. Kind of depends on the scale of the exhibition or other programming, scheduling ideas that we have. We've had shows as short as a month, that have come through the gallery, which is a lot more work to turn over. So we usually do it a longer period of time. But when you're looking at any type of gallery space, exhibition space as a platform to talk about ideas, well, that broadens the possibility of what a gallery can do beyond just hanging up a bunch of pretty pictures for people to maybe come in and look at, maybe purchase. So we're pretty intentional when it comes to that gallery programming of offering this community something different, comforting but provocative. You don't want to be too comforting and you don't want to be too provocative. Both don't move the needle anywhere, So recent example would be our Sacred Currents exhibition, where we had a local collector of African art who has, we could say it this way. I might have had a preconceived notion of what I thought African art would look like. And then Daniel started sending us pictures of his collection, and I'm like, this is so different than what I would have expected. And it's right here. So we got to do this show. Like, it'll be great to do this show. And the feedback that we received was that, like me, people saw something different than what they might have expected. We got a lot of thank yous from people who recognized that it was a more diverse offering than what we've had in the gallery in the past. They really appreciated all of the written material that Daniel had contributed to the show, so they could do a deeper dive inside and outside of the gallery space. And so for us, that was a very reassuring type of thing that, we can continue to explore when it comes to that gallery space of offering, some challenging types of stuff that's not off-putting. We don't want to be off-putting, we don't want to alienate our people, but we don't want to just kind of leave them where they're at either. We want to be able to challenge them with even some of the things we've talked about, of course, in this conversation, challenge them to go a little bit deeper.
Expands horizons.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important aspect of art.
Yeah.
To kind of push not just the boundaries of the art, but push the boundaries of expression or interpretation.
Right.
Too.
Right.
Because I've never been to Africa. I may not have any real idea of what it actually looks like in an artistic lens. Yep. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Are there any exhibits coming up that you look forward to?
Well, the exhibition that we have right now is our members exhibition, and the specialness of doing a members exhibition in a biennial type of way is that you get to see how the membership is kind of altering and changing, maybe in response to what we do, or they're changing in response to any other thing that they see. So you don't see the same artwork from the same artist year after year or every 2 years. There's going to be a change there. We try to offer a theme for that to kind of inspire them. Gigi Hernandez, who is our curator for that exhibition, came up with Size Matters as a play on scale. We have artists who've contributed buttons, actual buttons that were worn on sweaters. Some goofball made a giant piggy bank, and that's on display in the gallery. We've got other, miniatures, large paintings. It's just really, really beautiful work. And that's, for us, that's this homegrown thing of, collecting together members and looking at each other's work. It's a really anticipated exhibition that we have. As far as others, the Florida Gallery, which is a group of artists that create really great work about Florida and not maybe the postcard version of Florida, but like what we Floridians really deeply enjoy about the state. We're looking forward to having an exhibition of their work in the future. We've had exhibitions with highwaymen here. We've had folk art, Florida folk artists, outsider artists who have displayed in our gallery. We're always kind of looking for something fresh and different. It doesn't have to be about Florida. It doesn't have to be about citrus. It doesn't have to be about cowboys. and ranchers and things. We know that it's popular if we do that. But again, we want to be able to kind of offer up, these different types of experiences. So we're always on the hunt, for really good stuff to get people engaged in.
Likewise.
Yeah, there you go. Right? That's right.
Because I know if I have a certain audience, you can just keep feeding them the same thing. But I like being creative.
Yeah.
I don't think that's pushing the boundary where I want to find someone that you may have never even thought to talk to or to listen to.
Right.
Because, I want to rip the Band-Aid. Someone I'm going to be interviewing next week. It hasn't happened yet, so I don't want to talk about it. But
okay.
He does a sport I've never done. I have zero experience. And I'm going to come in as a complete open-minded novice, asking questions that may be really dumb to a legend of what he does.
Yeah.
But I think other people can relate because they may have never done it either. Right.
Yeah. I don't know that much about curling either. So,
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'd try to get an Olympic curler.
Right.
An idea I had when you said size matters. I thought it'd be cool if you had a very, very miniature sculpture, hyper realistic, but just really small.
Yeah.
But you can, when you walk into the gallery, you'd have this massive magnifying glass.
Oh, sure.
So you'd walk in, you'd see it.
Yes.
It's really, really big.
Yeah.
And then you could just peep around it, and then you realize it's this tiny thing.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because with our exhibitions, we will do lunch and learn events, and then we invite the public in. It's free for members or nominal charge if you're not. And we'll do lectures or we'll have an artist discussion or something like that. For Size Matters, I presented a lecture that was not in any way exhaustive, but and maybe even barely comprehensive. But the idea was that we give some type of understanding of ancient art with scale. And then, kind of a Western medieval understanding of scale changes, and then modern art. And one of the artists that two things. One was medieval art. Are you familiar with, oh gosh, what are they called? I'm losing it. Well, it's the size of like a nut. It'd be something kind of like a rosary. It's funny that I can't remember the name, but off the top of my head. But these would be made out of a certain type of wood that's really dense. And takes you can do a lot of detailed carving without snapping the thing off. The example that I showed was the entire crucifixion scene. And like everyone and their mother is in this thing. And it's the size of a walnut. I mean, this thing's like not very big.
It's wood?
And it's wood. And it's all hand carved. So this would have been like a medieval piece of artwork that was made, maybe in like the 1200s. And there's not very many of them. There's maybe like 30 to 50 left on the planet. But these are like very sacred objects. You would have had monks, priests, who own these things, or high-profile patrons of the church back in the day. So it's this micro thing, but it has to be seen through a magnifying glass to really kind of be enjoyed. I mean, they're beautiful. But then I displayed the work of Ron Muick. So Ron Muick is a sculptor who will make like a baby, but that baby is 30 feet in length from the top of her head to the tip of her toe, and completely lifelike. Usually made out of resin, but airbrushed and just perfectly lifelike, and completely playing with scale. Or makes these other objects, people, usually all people, but smaller, right? Commonality in both the large scale and small scale is that like emotive sense that you get, like his characterization that he uses in these sculptures is so emotive. You connect with this small figurine or this massive, object in the space. And that was kind of fun. So again, these weren't things that were in our show, but I wanted to be able to show our people all these other things that I have the advantage of learning about through an art history course. They don't know. And so now they get to kind of learn and go out and maybe search for, kind of experience on their own.
People can rent this space, I believe, right?
Yeah.
How can people use this space if they chose to in the future?
So we have people use this particular space in a variety of ways because being an old Catholic church, we'll have weddings and we'll have wedding receptions in here, celebrations of life in here, sometimes baby showers, and civic events like the Chamber of Commerce likes to use our space. The cool part about this particular space is that it feels like a sacred space but it's no longer tied to any particular denomination or any particular belief. It just looks a certain way. So we've had weddings in here that are Catholic. We've had weddings that are Protestant, Muslim weddings. Just a variety of different types of faiths feel comfortable in this space because it's not a church. So it kind of opens up the possibilities of who's here. There's one young woman who's really excited to get married here because she's totally a goth girl. And so they're going to deck this place out to feel very gothic when she gets married.
Black.
Yeah, man. Low lighting, dark, and she gets to do that in a space that looks like this without any preconceived notions of good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah.
When it comes to that type of aesthetic.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
So I literally just drove by and I stopped in really close to closing. So I was very cognizant. I didn't want to take up too much time. And Daniel was here that introduced us.
Yeah.
And just walked me around. I was like, this is really cool. I don't really know what it was. It looks like a church, obviously, from the outside. He's like, no, we're an arts council and arts center building.
Yeah.
And this is the space. And we kept it. And I forgot that it was this old. 1927. It's almost 100 years old. Which is really, really cool.
Right.
So I wanted to bring up that people can rent this space.
They can.
Because not only is it really cool for your event, but it helps contribute to you guys.
It's one of our earned income revenue streams.
Right. And
That's
it's able to help you guys out.
It does.
And it's able to support you, I guess, ultimately what I'm trying to say.
More kids can go to summer camp when we're able to rent this space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For a wedding or anything else.
That's right.
So I think that's really cool. Only a couple questions left.
Okay.
What inspired you to become the executive director here?
So when I first walked in the building, I was just signing up to be a volunteer and maybe help teach, some of the pottery classes. At that point, we had one pottery wheel, and so it's going to be like a lot of hand building, type of thing, which would have been fine. But a week later, I got an email that said the executive director was leaving, and then actually the entire staff was deciding to leave too. This was in August of 2021, and the curiosity about that is that staff had really worked very hard to keep this place going during the pandemic, and they've got to be applauded for that. I conjecture, without following up with them, that there was a certain amount of fatigue that probably came from that. And I think a lot of them, after that experience, decided to transition into something else, whether it was an art center somewhere else that just had more grounding in it or a totally different career. Regardless, they just left, right? They all decided to leave. And so the board of directors was trying to figure out exactly what our next phase of life was going to be. And then in wanders this guy who, had started up his own company and was just kind of looking for a local thing to get engaged with. I'm talking about me right now. And I had a great conversation with the president and met with the board. And they brought me in for the first year. I was the director of programs, and the board president was the acting executive director. His name's Rusty Angley, and he and I were able to work very closely together. He has a cultural foothold within Lake Wales already because he and his friend Reed Hardman created the Orange Blossom Review, which is a really incredible concert experience that happens here in December. And so both of them are really eager, kind of visually artist, but more musically minded types of dudes. And so they recognize the value, and Rusty definitely recognized the value of the Arts Council maintaining in some capacity. So he and I worked together, and at the end of that, after basically like a year's long interviews, the board decided to unanimously bring me on as executive director. It was an interesting week in my life because that was a Tuesday, and the following Saturday, I got married for the first time here in Lake Wales. I had, over the course of being involved with the Arts Council, actually shortly before that, I had met someone, Faith, and she and I were in love, and we decided to make Lake Wales our home. So, being appointed executive director and Mr. Tommy Frank in the same week was kind of it was a great week. But, so yeah, that was about 4 years ago that happened.
Sounds better than a Tuesday in Singapore.
I guess it depends on the Tuesday, but yeah, I'd say it's better than a Tuesday in Singapore.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very neat.
Right.
I'm glad I just stumbled.
Yeah, me too.
Upon you and Daniel and
the
Arts Council. I think it's Really, really neat.
It's a pretty great place.
May have told you before. I know you probably have seen a couple of the episodes at this point. I've got a gift for every single guest. I write all my notes in Field Notes, brand that I really love. They're made in the US and they're textile. You're an artist. You're going to understand.
Oh, yeah.
It's different to write on quality paper.
Yeah.
I just don't like, cheap stuff.
No.
So I give a small one to every guest.
Awesome.
This may look familiar, may not. Do you know Hat Show Print Company?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
So this is a collaboration.
Awesome.
So the print was a real poster.
Okay.
And obviously they screen print what the real poster was. So I think it's really cool.
That is awesome.
So that's for you.
Oh, that's really
cool. It's artistic. It's colorful. I think it's fun.
That's great.
And I like the small ones because they fit in your pocket.
Yeah.
So I may not have said in other episodes, but I was using Field Notes as early as 2018. And when I would do these trips.
Before they were cool?
Well, no, just before this project.
Okay.
Right? Before I started talking about them so frequently.
Yeah.
I would bring a small one per trip. And each day, I would try my best to, at the end of the day, just write down what I did.
Yeah.
Of course, 3 days go by and I got to backtrack and write down what happened. But I think it's cool where I can pick up this little booklet from 2018 or 2019. Yeah. And I can go through my sabbatical of 36 days through Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
In this little book.
Yeah.
And then you could be as descriptive as you want of this is what I ate, this is what we did.
Yep.
Or it could just be like, I was on another boat or another train, another plane. So I think it's a really cool way to travel.
Yeah, it's nice.
As well.
There's been a couple of like school trips where, they wanted a journal every day. For a long time, I kept a calendar about this size in my back pocket, back before I put notes in my phone. And I still have every single one of those calendars, So it's like I can remember what my life was like, 20 years ago.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Try to encourage people to physically write more frequently.
Yeah.
Just like a fingerprint, you'll pick up your own handwriting differently than other people will.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Or people that you're close to. I'll see handwriting, I'll know it's my mom's.
Yeah.
Whether it's on like, the back of something.
That's
or
right.
I'll notice it's my dad's. It could be your dad's and I don't know who wrote this.
Right.
But you'll see it.
Right.
And you'll get it.
Right.
I think it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So I really want to thank Daniel, and Mr. Frank, Tommy. Thank you so much for spending so much time and allowing us to use this really cool space.
Yeah.
I took a couple pictures. I showed a friend or two.
Oh, yeah.
One person from a distance thought it was a train station.
Oh, interesting.
Just a picture.
Just because it seemed maybe bigger than.
Yeah. And
cool.
Before you like zoom in and realize, you just kind of see all these, could look like a train station.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty cool. I think it'll look really cool on camera.
Good.
And it was an interview I've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
The final question.
Yes.
For every guest.
Right.
Is the mantra to the project. My dad's greatest advice to me is to never waste a mistake. And I have to say it every episode. It could be your first time listening. It's poetic because it's not just wasting your mistake that you made for yourself or that I made myself.
Yeah.
It's anyone's mistake. That's what makes the lesson so beautiful.
Right.
So I can learn from you and these mentors and these art residencies that you've attended, and other people can learn from them as well. So the final question for every guest is, what is one mistake you have not wasted?
So the mistake was saying something I didn't mean to someone. When I say that, the unpacking of that is that like sometimes we will regurgitate what we hear other people say, and out of context, it might emotionally hit them differently than the intent. There was an artist that I was working with in Kansas City where I just made some flippant comments about the work that she was making. And it hurt her very, very much. And it caused a rift in our relationship for a long time. That mistake, I hope, has led to just being more conscious, about those things. Not to be obsessive, but just to be aware that repeating something really stupid that someone said to you and saying it out of context to somebody else might cause a lot more harm than good. At the time it was kind of meant to be a little bit of friendly poking, but man, it hurt her bad. And I don't want to, as best as I can avoid that, I don't want to create that type of space for someone ever again, that they get really hurt by some flippant thing that I say out of context. Does that seem like an appropriate answer to the question?
Of course. There's no wrong answer.
Sure.
Another beauty of the lesson.
Yeah.
But it's important. there's different expressions that I'm thinking of. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah.
So people should be listening twice as much as they speak.
Yeah.
It's ironic I say that on a conversation that I'm recording and all we do is talk and listen to each other.
Of course.
But, we've all heard it from our parents, our grandparents, watch what you say, sticks and stones, all these different expressions, right? And it's important, and they're so prevalent because it's important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't important, we wouldn't have so many ways of describing this very lesson.
Yeah.
And some people, unfortunately, will experience it and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
But the purpose of these conversations is to hear a real life example.
Right.
And they got to know you. And they got to experience what it's like in this room and these conversations. And they can hopefully take it away.
Yeah.
And learn from it as well.
Cool.
Mr. Frank.
Tom, I have to tell you how much I appreciate the fact that we got a chance to sit around and talk, and who knew where some of those questions were going to go. So it was really enjoyable, to be able to hash out our ideas of what AI is going to do, or thoughts on travel and different stuff like that. So thanks for coming. Thanks for taking the chance, driving by, stop into the building. It's really nice to be able to just connect with someone who's not too close by, but not too far away either. So hopefully we'll have a chance to visit with each other again sometime in the future.
Of course, guys, please check out the Lake Wales Arts Council. Mr. Frank.
Thank you very much.
Until next time.
All right.